She said, "Relax, you're overreacting. It was just a birthday text to my ex." After I read her midnight messages saying she missed him, I said, "No, this is me reacting normally." She lost it when his girlfriend replied to my screenshot, and the group chat exploded within minutes. I, 32M, never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts. 24 hours ago, I was planning my girlfriend's surprise birthday party. Now I'm sitting in my brother's spare room, watching my phone blow up with messages from people I haven't spoken to in months. It started 3 nights ago. We'd been together for 4 years, living together for 2. The kind of relationship where you stop checking your partner's phone because trust isn't even a question anymore. That was my first mistake. I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, screen facing up. The notification made my stomach drop before my brain could process what I was reading. A message preview from someone whose name I recognized immediately. Her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she'd sworn meant nothing to her anymore. The one she'd told me was completely out of her life. The preview showed enough. She missed him. 3 words that changed everything. I stood there in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs. Part of me wanted to wake her up right then, demand an explanation. The logical part, the part that had watched enough of these situations blow up in people's faces, told me to wait. To gather information before I made any moves. I went back to bed. Didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe peacefully beside me, wondering how long this had been going on. Morning came. She woke up cheerful, kissed my cheek, asked what I wanted for breakfast. I told her I wasn't hungry. She didn't notice anything was wrong. That hurt almost as much as the message itself. She left for work around 8. I called in sick. I wasn't planning to snoop through her phone, but I also wasn't planning to spend the rest of my life wondering. Her laptop was open on the dining table. She never logged out of her messages there. I wish I hadn't looked. I also wish I'd looked sooner. The conversations went back 6 months. It started innocently enough. He'd reached out after running into her at some work conference. "Just catching up," he'd said. She'd responded enthusiastically. Too enthusiastically. The messages evolved from casual updates about life to late-night conversations about their past relationship. About what went wrong. About what could have been different. Then came her birthday last year. He'd sent a long message about how much she'd meant to him, how breaking up was his biggest regret. She'd responded that she thought about him sometimes too, that she wondered what their life would have looked like if they'd stayed together. My hands were shaking. I screenshot everything, not because I had a plan, but because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The most recent messages were from 2 nights ago, after midnight. He'd told her he was having problems with his girlfriend. She'd stayed up consoling him, telling him he deserved better. Telling him she missed their connection. Telling him she sometimes felt like she'd settled. That word. Settled. Like our 4 years together were just a placeholder until something better came along. I spent the day organizing the screenshots into a folder, numbering them chronologically, making sure the timestamps were visible. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them yet, but having them organized made me feel less powerless. She came home around 6, asked me how I was feeling, whether my stomach was better. I told her I was fine now. She suggested we order Thai food and watch a movie. I agreed. We sat on the couch, her head on my shoulder, while I watched her laugh at the comedy we'd put on. I kept wondering if she was thinking about him. After she fell asleep that night, I did something I'm not proud of. I searched for him on social media. Found his profile easily. He was in a relationship. Had been for about 8 months. His girlfriend's profile was public. She seemed nice. Posted a lot about their weekend hikes, their dog, their plans to renovate their apartment. She had no idea her boyfriend was having late-night emotional affairs with his ex. I sat there staring at her profile picture for a long time, wondering if I should tell her, wondering if that made me petty or protective, wondering if I was about to ruin multiple lives out of revenge or justice. The next morning, I decided to confront my girlfriend first, give her a chance to explain before I blew everything up. I waited until she'd had her coffee. Asked her casually if she'd been in touch with anyone from her past recently. She said no without hesitation. I asked specifically about her ex. She laughed, asked why I was bringing him up, told me he was ancient history, told me I had nothing to worry about. I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots, watched her face go from confused to pale to angry in the span of 3 seconds. She demanded to know why I'd gone through her messages. I told her I hadn't, that I'd seen the notification in the middle of the night. She called me paranoid, said I was making something out of nothing. The messages were just friendly catch-ups between old friends. The birthday text was harmless. I was overreacting. I asked her to explain the part where she'd said she missed him, the part where she'd called our relationship settling. She stumbled over her words, said I was taking things out of context, said she'd been venting because we'd had that fight about my work schedule the week before, said it didn't mean anything. I asked her if she'd tell him to stop contacting her. She hesitated, actually hesitated, then told me she couldn't just cut off a friendship because I was being insecure. That's when I knew the relationship was over. Not because of the messages themselves, but because she was choosing to protect her connection with him over respecting my boundaries. I told her I needed space to think. She panicked then, started crying, saying I was being dramatic, that I was throwing away 4 years over nothing. I grabbed my laptop and some clothes and told her I'd be back for the rest of my things later. I went to my brother's place. He took one look at my face and didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and pointed to the spare room. I spent the afternoon lying on his guest bed, scrolling through those screenshots again, feeling angrier each time I read them. Around evening, I made a decision. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was justified. I still haven't decided. I found his girlfriend's profile again. Sent her a message request with a simple introduction. Told her I was dating her boyfriend's ex, told her I'd discovered some concerning messages between them. Asked if she'd be willing to look at some screenshots because I thought she deserved to know what was happening. She responded within 10 minutes. Told me to send everything. I did. All of it. Chronologically organized, timestamps visible, context clear. She thanked me. Told me she'd suspected something was off lately, but couldn't prove it. Told me she appreciated my honesty. Then she went silent. 20 minutes later, my phone started exploding. My girlfriend was calling repeatedly. I ignored it. Text messages started flooding in. She'd found out somehow that I'd contacted his girlfriend. She was furious. Called me vindictive and cruel. Said I'd ruined his relationship out of spite. Said I'd crossed a line. I didn't respond. Just watched the messages pile up. Then his girlfriend posted something in their friend group chat. I know this because several mutual friends started messaging me, asking what was happening. Apparently, she'd confronted him immediately. He'd tried to deny it at first. She'd shown him the screenshots. He'd admitted to an emotional affair. She'd kicked him out of their apartment. Their friend group was in chaos. People were taking sides. Some were calling him out for cheating. Others were saying it was just messages and everyone was overreacting. The drama spread quickly. Within an hour, dozens of people knew the whole story. My girlfriend showed up at my brother's place around 9 p.m. He wouldn't let her in, told her I didn't want to talk. She stood outside yelling about how I'd destroyed everything out of jealousy, how I'd humiliated her in front of everyone, how their entire social circle now knew her private business. I finally came to the door, told her calmly that I hadn't destroyed anything. She'd done that herself when she'd decided to maintain an inappropriate relationship with her ex, when she'd lied to my face about it, when she'd chosen him over us. She tried a different approach then, started crying, saying she'd made a mistake, that the messages didn't mean anything, that she'd cut him off completely if I'd just give her another chance, that she loved me. I asked her when she'd last told him she loved him. She went quiet. I told her I'd be by to get my things over the weekend, that she should figure out if she wanted to keep the apartment or if we'd need to break the lease, that I was done. She left crying. My brother asked if I was okay. I told him I would be. Update 1. It's been 5 days since everything exploded. I'm still at my brother's place. The fallout has been worse than I expected, but also weirdly validating. His girlfriend, whose name I learned is Emily, messaged me the day after. She thanked me again for telling her the truth, told me she'd ended things with him permanently. Then she asked if she could ask me some questions about the timeline, because some of his stories weren't adding up. We ended up talking for over an hour. Turns out, the problems in their relationship he'd been complaining to my girlfriend about, most of them were fabricated. Emily had no idea he was unhappy. They'd been planning a vacation to Portugal for their anniversary. She'd been looking at engagement rings, thinking he might propose soon. The betrayal she felt made my own situation feel smaller somehow. At least I'd found out before I'd proposed, before we'd gotten married or had kids. I told her that. She said it didn't make it hurt less, but she appreciated the perspective. Through our conversation, more details emerged. He'd been following my girlfriend on social media this whole time, liking her posts, commenting occasionally. Emily had noticed, but thought it was harmless since they'd dated years ago. She'd even defended him when her friends pointed it out, saying she trusted him. That trust cost her 8 months of her life with someone who was emotionally checked out. Meanwhile, my girlfriend had been trying everything to contact me. She'd called my parents, my friends, even my coworkers. Everyone told her the same thing: I needed space. Some of my friends had seen the screenshots by then. The ones who'd met her were shocked. She'd always seemed so devoted to me, so invested in our relationship. One of my closest friends called me to ask if I was doing okay. I told him honestly that I felt like an idiot for not seeing the signs earlier. He asked what signs. I realized I couldn't name any. She'd hidden it perfectly, never acted suspicious, never pulled away, never gave me a reason to doubt her. That somehow made it worse. My brother convinced me to see a therapist. I went to 1 session and booked 3 more. The therapist asked me if I felt guilty about contacting Emily. I told her I did, a little. She asked me why. I said because it felt like revenge, and revenge usually meant you were doing something wrong. She asked me if I thought Emily deserved to know the truth. I said yes. She asked if I would have wanted someone to tell me if they'd known what was happening. I said absolutely. She told me to reconcile those 2 facts and see if I still felt guilty. I thought about that a lot over the next few days. The friend group drama continued escalating. Apparently, he'd been telling people I'd fabricated the screenshots, that I was trying to sabotage his relationship because I was jealous he'd dated my girlfriend first. Some people believed him initially, until Emily confirmed she'd seen the original messages on his phone when she'd confronted him. His credibility collapsed after that. People who defended him started backing away. His best friend apparently told him he was on his own with this one. My girlfriend tried a different approach. She started posting cryptic messages on social media about betrayal and privacy, about how relationships should be sacred, about how vindictive exes could destroy lives with lies. Several people who didn't know the full story reached out to me asking what happened. I sent them the screenshots. Let them draw their own conclusions. I wasn't interested in a public war, but I also wasn't going to let her rewrite history. One of her coworkers messaged me privately, told me she'd suspected something was going on, that my girlfriend had been unusually distracted at work for months, that she'd seen her texting someone constantly, smiling at her phone, being secretive about it. She'd assumed it was me. She apologized for not saying anything. I told her there was nothing to apologize for. How could she have known? On Thursday, my girlfriend showed up at my workplace. Security called me down to the lobby. She was crying, begging me to talk to her, telling me she'd ended all contact with him, that she'd deleted his number and blocked him everywhere, that she'd do anything to fix this. I asked her why she'd waited until after everything exploded to do that, why she hadn't done it the morning I confronted her, when I'd asked her to. She didn't have a good answer. I told her I'd stop by the apartment on Saturday to get my things, that I'd bring my brother with me, that she didn't need to be there if she didn't want to be. She asked if there was any chance we could work through this. I told her honestly that I couldn't see how. Trust wasn't something you could rebuild when the person had chosen to lie even after being caught. Friday evening, Emily messaged me again. She'd been going through more of his things and found a journal. He'd written about my girlfriend extensively, about how breaking up with her was his biggest mistake, about how he'd reached out hoping to rekindle things, about how he'd been deliberately creating problems in his relationship with Emily because he wanted an excuse to lean on his ex for emotional support. It was all calculated. The whole thing. He'd orchestrated his own relationship problems to create opportunities to get closer to my girlfriend. Emily was devastated. I felt sick reading her messages. This guy had manipulated 2 relationships simultaneously, playing both women, keeping both of us in the dark. I asked Emily if she wanted me to send the journal entries to my girlfriend, let her know she'd been manipulated too. Emily said no. Said my girlfriend had made her own choices to engage with him. Said knowing he was manipulative didn't excuse her behavior. She was right. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the 4 years we'd spent together, trying to pinpoint when she'd started pulling away emotionally, trying to remember if there were moments I'd missed, conversations that should have raised red flags. I couldn't find any. Either she was that good at hiding it, or I was that oblivious. Neither option made me feel better. Update 2. Saturday came. My brother and I showed up at the apartment at noon. I texted her that morning to let her know. She responded asking if she could be there to talk. I told her it would be easier if she wasn't. She wasn't there when we arrived. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter, a long, handwritten letter apologizing for everything, explaining that she'd been confused, That reconnecting with him had brought up old feelings she didn't know how to process. That she'd never meant to hurt me. That she realized now how badly she'd screwed up. The letter was 3 pages long. I read the first page and put it down. My brother asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine. We started packing. It took about 4 hours to get all my stuff. Clothes, books, my gaming setup, kitchen items I'd bought, furniture that was clearly mine. She'd left everything untouched. Hadn't tried to hide anything or throw anything away. Part of me wondered if she still hoped I'd change my mind. As we were loading the last boxes into the truck, she pulled up. She got out of her car and just stood there, watching us. My brother tensed, ready to intervene if things got heated. I told him it was fine. She asked if we could talk for just 5 minutes. I looked at my watch and nodded. She told me she'd been in therapy every day this week. That her therapist was helping her understand why she'd sabotaged our relationship. That she had attachment issues from her childhood. That reconnecting with her ex had triggered something in her she hadn't been prepared to deal with. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I asked if her therapist had helped her understand why she'd lied to me when I confronted her. Why she'd defended her right to keep talking to him instead of immediately cutting contact. Why she'd only blocked him after everyone found out, and her reputation was destroyed. She started crying. Said she'd been scared. That she'd panicked. That she'd made terrible choices. I told her I appreciated her honesty now, but it was too late. That I couldn't be in a relationship where I had to wonder if she was telling the truth. Where I had to check her messages to feel secure. Where I had to compete with a ghost from her past. She asked if there was anything she could do to prove she'd changed. I told her she could prove it by respecting my decision and giving me space. By working on herself for herself, not to win me back. By learning from this, so she didn't do it to the next person. She nodded. Asked if we could stay friends eventually. I told her honestly that I didn't know. That maybe someday, but not now. Not anytime soon. My brother and I left. She was still standing in the parking lot when we drove away. That evening, I got a message from him. Her ex. He'd somehow gotten my number. The message was long and rambling. He apologized for the situation. Said he'd never meant to cause problems between us. That he'd just been going through a rough time and needed someone to talk to. That my girlfriend had been there for him when no one else was. He said he hoped I could understand that people make mistakes. That emotional connections were complicated. That he wished me the best and hoped I'd eventually forgive both of them. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked his number without responding. Emily messaged me shortly after. She'd gotten a similar message from him. She'd also blocked him without responding. She said she was proud of both of us for not engaging. That he didn't deserve the closure he was seeking. We talked for a while about moving forward. She was planning to move back to her hometown for a few months, stay with her parents while she figured things out. I told her I was thinking about looking for a new place. Maybe a different neighborhood. Somewhere without memories attached to every corner. She said that sounded healthy. Then she said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, and our only job is to not bring it back in. Sunday morning, I woke up in my brother's guest room and felt lighter somehow. Not happy exactly, but less heavy, less stuck. I spent the day organizing my stuff. Setting up my gaming equipment in the corner of the room. Hanging up my clothes. Making the space feel temporary but livable. My parents called to check on me. I told them the basics, but not the details. My mom asked if I was eating enough. My dad asked if I needed help finding a lawyer to get my name off the lease. I appreciated both questions equally. Several friends reached out over the weekend. Some sent supportive messages. Others asked if I wanted to go out for drinks. I took a few people up on it. Spent Saturday night at a bar with 2 college friends, not talking about the breakup, just catching up on their lives. It felt normal. It felt good. One friend mentioned he was looking for a roommate. His current one was moving out next month. He had a 2-bedroom place in a neighborhood I'd always liked. Rent would be cheaper than what I'd been paying. I told him I was interested. Monday at work, my boss called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble for the drama at the lobby on Thursday. Instead, he asked if I was okay. Told me if I needed some time off to deal with personal issues, he could approve a few days. I thanked him, but said I'd rather stay busy. Staying busy helped. Focusing on projects. Diving into work. Not having time to think about what I'd lost. That evening, I got a message from one of her friends. Someone I'd been friendly with throughout our relationship. She apologized for not reaching out sooner. Said she'd been processing everything. That she'd confronted my ex-girlfriend about the situation and gotten the full story. That she couldn't believe someone she'd known for so long would do something like this. She said my ex had been devastated when more details came out about how calculated his approach had been. That finding out she'd been manipulated hadn't made her feel better. It had made her feel stupid on top of heartbroken. I felt a flicker of sympathy reading that. Then I remembered how she'd lied to my face, and it disappeared. The friend asked if I was doing okay. I told her I was getting there. She said she respected how I'd handled everything. That a lot of guys would have made it messy. I told her I'd considered it, but decided it wasn't worth the energy. She said she was here if I ever needed to talk. I thanked her and meant it. Tuesday brought an unexpected development. Emily called me instead of texting. She sounded upset. I asked what happened. She'd run into him at their mutual friend's place. He'd been there when she showed up. He'd tried to talk to her, apologize in person. She'd shut him down immediately, but he'd followed her to her car. Kept insisting they needed closure. That they'd been good together before things got complicated. That maybe in the future, when everything calmed down, they could try again. Emily had told him to lose her number. He'd gotten angry then. Accused her of being dramatic. Said she was throwing away a good relationship because of some harmless messages. That I'd poisoned her against him by sending those screenshots. She'd gotten in her car and locked the doors. He'd stood there yelling at her through the window before finally leaving. She was shaken. Asked if she should file a police report. I told her to document everything. Screenshot any messages he sent. Keep a record of the encounter. Make sure their mutual friends knew what happened so someone would notice if his behavior escalated. She thanked me. Said she felt like she'd dodged a bullet by finding out when she did. That she couldn't imagine being married to someone like that. Having kids with someone like that. I felt the same way about my ex-girlfriend. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the whole situation. About how one notification at 2 a.m. had unraveled multiple lives. About how many people were affected by two people's selfish choices. But I also thought about how much worse it could have been. If I'd proposed. If we'd gotten married. If I'd spent another 5 years before finding out. I'd lost 4 years. It hurt, but at least it was only 4. Wednesday morning, I woke up and didn't immediately think about her. It was the first time in 2 weeks. That felt like progress. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.